Okay, let's get started. So welcome everyone to the Porter Community Meeting for September 8th, 2022. Just a reminder that this meeting is recorded. We'll have it posted on YouTube later today. And the meeting falls under our code of conduct as well. So jumping in, yesterday I cut a release candidate for 1.0, and I really need people to help test it. So as a reminder for how the release candidate process is going to go, at this point we've made all the code changes to Porter that we had scheduled. And we're looking for any show-stopping bugs that would prevent us from re-tagging this as a 1.0. So if we don't hear back from people at all and it sounds stable and everything's looking good, there won't be another release candidate. We'll just edit the tag, change it to 1.0, and that will be our 1.0 release. If we find bugs that we couldn't fix after 1.0 or like had a really big impact, then we would fix it and then cut a release candidate 2 and so on. I'm hoping we don't have to do that though. Does anyone have any questions about the release candidate process or maybe concerns about being able to test it in a specific amount of time?
I mean, I'll just say that we have been using it, all the alpha betas, everything that's been coming out lately. So I feel like we've done a fair amount of exercising it. If that helps, and you've seen some of our Kubernetes use cases that aren't necessarily in line for 1.0, but that'll be coming down the road, I guess. So
okay.
We feel real confident with what we've been seeing. So it's looking great.
Good, because it's just I personally don't have the most realistic workloads, right? I spend 98% of my day just doing things that probably aren't running Porter bundles. Actually, I'm writing the code for it. So I just, I appreciate all help, in trying to hammer out that this is going to be solid.
We've been doing a lot of work with helping teams create their first bundles lately. And I'm going to give some kudos to Stephen Geddes of I've literally seen him working with teams and adding functionality to the Terraform mixin as he's working on bundles with other teams.
Oh, slick. So. Nice. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that just speaks to how easy it is to get stuff into the whole Porter ecosystem, though. When we come across something, it's like, wow, let's just go fix it ourselves because it's right there.
There you go. Yeah, I thought I was just being lazy, but evidently it's also helpful to have everything be a plugin, basically. I wanted to talk about 2 different categories of work we have coming up and how we're going to try to organize it and find it. Because as you mentioned, there's a lot of stuff going on with the operator that's kind of been on pause while we've been working on the 1.0 release. And so I've created one label that would be the first minor patch release after Porter. So it'd be 1.1. And I'm going to go through our whole backlog. One, I'm going to be getting rid of old stuff that just isn't maybe the most relevant or helpful to us anymore. But also I'm going to flag things that are kind of high impact that we would just like to get fixed pretty quickly after 1.0. So this one that came up was there's a way to configure Azure Cosmos DB, which is compatible with Mongo. There's a way to configure it so that when you turn on continuous backup, which sounds super useful, I would like continuous backup, please. It doesn't work with how we create indices in Porter kind of just in time as we access data. We need to be kind of doing things a little more upfront and intentional. So that was the first one that I flagged as something we'd like to see fixed, because like there's basically two databases we support, Cosmos and Mongo. So this is kind of a problem. Yeah, so if there's other ones that you want to help me surface, like feel free to just link it or comment, or if you have permission to label, please just label it. And this will just be the pool of like stuff that we're working off of to get an initial minor patch out. I also have created a label for things associated with what the operator needs, because it's kind of hard to find. Like for the moment I have a label, but I think maybe GitHub project board maybe would be a little more helpful to kind of bring together issues from the multiple repositories, because there's the Kubernetes plugin repo, there's the operator repo, and there's Porter. And so I'm looking for ways to kind of do a little bit more organization and grouping of issues, so we can kind of say we need these 6 things to kind of happen next. And I think that hasn't been working so well for us so far. If people have suggestions for how to, make GitHub do this stuff better, like milestone project label, whatever, I'm all ears. I'm not a project manager, so this is, we're just kind of trying to see what works. Are there, just off the top of your heads, are there anything that we think we should be pulling in pretty quickly post 1.0 other than the Cosmos problem?
The private registry support. It's
This one, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we being able to pull a bundle out of a private registry.
Yeah.
And I'm actively digging into that code right now.
Great.
Yeah,
Okay.
how that rabbit hole goes.
Are you mounting just the Docker config directory?
That's where I'm starting, like agent action, adding a Docker config mount from the service account, but I little suspect that it might get into the CNAB to OCI module as well.
So pretty much everything is loading its authentication from your default Docker directory, your config directory. So like I have a strong sense. I'll give you 80% that it'll work, to be honest.
Okay, good.
I'm excited about that.
Good. Yeah, that's good to hear. Yeah, I wasn't sure how that worked with going via the Kubernetes API versus actually having a Docker API to talk to. So
I mean, if we have the credentials in the default Docker location, so it's pretty much the equivalent of having run Docker login
client
locally.
side.
Yeah.
I think good point.
Yeah, I think that should work. And I had done a couple months ago a bunch of work to make sure that our various dependencies that interact with registries all respect things like the Docker config directory, the network, all that kind of stuff, right? We've been doing a whole bunch of work on that.
I'm just dealing, I have some code. I'm just dealing with some RBAC, of course.
Always.
Today.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm probably going to do a sweep at the end of this week. And I'll, like I said, cleaning up old issues. If I delete an issue that was like super near and dear to your heart and you're like, you didn't say that we're planning on doing it somewhere else. Like some things, I had a bunch of issues related to how to improve how we distribute mixins. And now we have that PEP distributing mixins as bundles that kind of supersedes a whole bunch of the ideas that I had put in those issues. That's why they're getting deleted. So we're still going to tackle the problem, but probably in a different way. But if I close an issue that was actually important, just comment on it. Let me know that we should pop it back open. I'm just finding 180 is probably like a good chunk of that is things that we thought were useful 2 years ago that maybe aren't so helpful right now for us. And it's just a lot to have to try to go through to find what's the next thing we should be working on.
Another thought for next thing is the ability to specify the plugins. I think just plugins, not mixins, right? For the operator in the agent image, because right now we're having to build our own agent image with the mixins we need in them right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am working on that currently too.
Oh, awesome.
To allow to be able to configure what plugins you would want, and then the agent action as a custom resource will load it in and then install it for you on demand. So we don't have to do the hack anymore.
It
Yeah,
seems like
great.
it was pretty far along, Yang. Is it to the point where we could have a pull request and have F5 look at it?
Yeah, I have the draft PR up and I pushed the latest code. I'm still trying to figure out the kind of life cycle for the PVC and PV created that has the plugin installed. For example, if Potter config is deleted, the resource is deleted, then I want to be able to clean up the plugins that's being installed on the PVC so that we don't have lingering resources that are just never being used and never got cleaned up. So I'm kind of working through that. There are some quirks in terms of, how much we want to reuse a set of existing plugins installed versus what's the correct point that we can say, okay, no one is using this set of installed plugins anymore, and now we can delete them. So I'm kind of working out those timing.
Like age out some volume mounts of shared driver or plugins or something like that, right?
Yes, and then I'm new to kind of like the Kubernetes lifecycle stuff, so I'm kind of chugging along, learning what's the correct way to handle it. So
yeah,
sorry.
On that note, one thing I was thinking of as an issue or something was to add a Kubernetes testing environment to the Porter release pipeline, just to catch driver issues on the way out. And we have a lot of code for spinning up an environment with the driver and Porter together. And actually, we've taken from the project and refactored a bit, and maybe we can give an incarnation of that back to help out a little bit with
That'd
that.
be great. Yeah, I think I was working with Stephen on some Kubernetes drivers issue, how it behaves differently from the Docker one.
I'll make an issue to track getting a real environment. Like, that's overdue. So we need to make that happen. And also testing with both Cosmos and a real MongoDB as opposed to, by default, like we're just testing that the little Mongo that we install with like a chart. I think it'd be good just to use like Atlas or something, and just make sure that works well together.
Yeah, by the way, for Cosmos, if you spin up the database in the US East region with continuous backup, then everything works great. So
oh, that's good to know. That's good to know. But I think
put that in the release note, right?
Yeah, exactly. Put that in the release notes.
Yeah.
I don't know why it works just in the US East region, but it works every time. So
it's so weird. That's so weird. Yeah. But I just want to fix that, right? Like I can just group together, the creation of the collections and initializing the indices so that all that happens in a more controlled manner. So it's not just, oh, I ran Porter list or whatever, and things happen automagically. I think it'll be helpful to be able to be more deliberate on initializing the database. But I'm glad we have a workaround.
Yeah, I think actually it would be worth scheduling some time so we can show you some of the progress we've been making with our environment, because like we're literally at a stage here where we've converted everything to 100% customized based, so we can have a customized overlay for running all this on local kind, a customized overlay for running everything on top of Azure. And so we have a quick way to just overlay to run on different cloud environments for the operator and even like we're leveraging it with Argo workflows and everything. So
would you be interested in just taking over the next meeting and showing this?
Yeah, I can talk to our, I think I have to get a little bit of approval.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
Yeah, we definitely like to do that. Yeah.
I would love to just spend an hour and see how you're doing all that, because these are hard-won best practices that I think we don't all know how to do.
I have some ideas of how to maybe even change the bundle that delivers the operator. Even
Oh yeah,
based on
totally.
some of this work. Yeah.
That'd be great. I'm adding you. Oh, I'm adding you to the future topics here. Is it overlay bundles, or is it just like customized config, or what are you using?
We're using 100% customized.
Okay.
I took all the manifests out of the operator project and I'm using them directly with customized and overlays. So.
Cool. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Real quick, I want to talk about the CNCF. So Porter is a CNCF project. We are currently in the sandbox. And just to kind of review, the sandbox is that we have donated the IP for Porter, and our logos, trademarks, everything is owned by the CNCF. So it's like, a neutral party essentially. But we don't really have the full backing and resources of the CNCF at the sandbox level. One example would be, being able to give a talk at KubeCon about it. If I wanted to talk about Porter at KubeCon, I have to fight against everyone else to talk about something, as opposed to being on the maintainer track, the project track, where, each project that's in incubation and above can just have a slot to talk about what's going on with their project. And they also have things like marketing support, infrastructure support, other things that would be useful to Porter. Our annual review has come due. And one of the things they do is they ask for you to think about, are you ready to submit to the next stage, to move on to incubation? And I think we are. I think we're really darn close. So I have an issue here that kind of goes over what are the things we need? What are we hitting? So we do have a clear versioning scheme, which is great, or clear enough. I don't know. And we do have, it's super active, so that's totally not a problem. We need to go through and update our maintainer list. We do have people who should move on to emeritus maintainers, because they're just, they do other stuff now with their lives, but they don't really work on Porter. We also have an adopters list that we track who's using Porter in production, is basically going to say, yeah, we use this. The technical oversight committee with the CNCF, the TOC, wants to see 3 big adopters. And it can't be like, Microsoft and Azure and Office, which is valid, but and doesn't count as 3 to them. So I'm going to do a little bit of a push to see if we can get more people listed, because we have had companies say publicly and even do talks about using Porter, but you know how hard it is sometimes to find the right person at a company who can put their name on a document and say that they use a project. So I'm going to work with Ralph on that to figure out how we can get, just make sure we definitely have big 3. Obviously F5, you want us 1,000,000 points if I find your name on there. Yeah.
What's the exchange rate for those points?
Oh man, that gives you so many PRs merged, let me tell you. 3 rubber stamps at least.
All right.
Yeah. One thing that we are lacking and we need to do is having a well-defined process for people to report security vulnerabilities or concerns in a way that is handled sensitively, and people all understand how it's going to work. So that is essentially a list of contacts who's going to be on the receiving end of reports, defining an embargo policy of when we release information about a known security problem. How does the notification go about? Like, what's a template? And basically a playbook for dealing with incidents, triaging, things like that. We have templates as part of the CNCF for all of these. So some of it is as easy as just adopting and customizing the template. But I think we're also just going to need to do a bit of learning and make sure we have the right people responding to things. And we all just kind of understand what's expected so that if something is reported, it's not a fire drill or it doesn't need to be a fire drill of understanding what the heck we're supposed to be doing at the same time. And then the biggest thing that's more of a black box to me that I'm not as familiar with because I haven't gone through it before with another project is that in order to get into Sandbox, we had to demonstrate a couple things, but we did not have a full review where people vetted, should Porter exist? Is this a valid thing to have in the CNCF ecosystem? All sorts of awkward questions get asked during the due diligence process. And this is guided by the technical advisory groups that are under the technical oversight committee. They kind of help do this. So I don't know who we would be reviewed by, probably like, I don't know. We'll see. If this was Kubernetes, it would be app delivery. So these are things that I need to find out and maybe get back to people about. But before we submit, we want to make sure that we would pass essentially and understand what the process for due diligence is and everything. So this is something I'll need to do a bit more research, ask some more people about who we would need to work with, what would be the tag, and kind of get a feel for how big their backlog is for doing due diligence. It's slow. So the idea is that we would submit our annual review within a month, probably something like that. Give people a heads up that we're going to try to submit for incubation, and then get all of our ducks in a row first, make sure that if there's any changes we need to make, we've made them, and then we'll submit to incubation. Are there any questions about the process or anything? Basically, it's just feel good. It's feel good and a lot more support from the CNCF. So I personally would like to see us get to that point. I think it'll be really helpful. All right, let's talk about our post 1.0 roadmap. And some of this I kind of talked about already, that I'll be cleaning up the backlog and kind of will be looking for issues to bring through. But I wanted to talk about just what we think is important to kind of think about next. Let me pull up our roadmap. Again, I'm not a PM, so this looks just as good as I could make in GitHub. So what's in development right now is obviously 1.0 and the Porter operator. For me personally, I'd really love to see us switch and kick into high gear with the operator and just start getting it to the point where we've identified and fixed any gaps, like installing plugins inside of the agent, making sure that the install experience is better, obviously stealing all of F5's work with the installer.
Getting outputs out from an installation is still a gap.
Yeah, let's get that captured.
Yeah.
How
dare you? I am parsing job logs on the fly, and you say that's a
Porter output -JSON and parsing it, right?
Yeah. And so I think we had talked about this before, and the larger feature that's going to support this, though obviously we can ship it smartly so that we ship the stuff we need most first, would be basically like a service or an endpoint. inside the cluster where you can query Porter's database. Does that still line up with what you were hoping for?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yes,
And there's a possible, I'm going to use that terrible word synergy here, but there's another CNCF project. I think it's called, is it Backstage.io?
Yeah, it is.
And I think some of that sort of stuff would make it easy to have Porter integrate in that project as well.
I haven't looked at integration opportunities with Backstage at all. Are you thinking that there's complementary things that you'd have both in the cluster?
I think there's, yeah, I think I could see Backstage having, because I think it's more about an aggregate UI for being able to deliver things and connect things together to deliver, and have that be able to be facilitated via the Porter operator for existing bundles, and then getting the output back to the users via the Backstage IO interface.
Backstage.io with a GRP service in the cluster would basically facilitate this, like, bring your own catalog item style workflow, where you have just those two projects together give you this whole, like, service catalog functionality.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And
Well, I used to work on service catalog, so you got my attention.
You don't have to write all of your own custom UI. Like, Backstage has this great plugins interface that you just extend. So that's, we're going to be looking to possibly replace our own homegrown UI with just the Backstage environment.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah, like the ability to inspect a bundle via the explain JSON output, and then have that help you import something into the catalog, and then it's available to folks. I think there's a lot of power there.
Would you be interested in writing issue, post, HackMD, whatever, just like a kind of like summary of like painting a picture of what that would look like? Because I don't know enough about Backstage to even grasp.
I don't either, but I know we have folks on our team looking into it, so I'll definitely circle the wagons a little bit, and we'll see what we can do there. But yeah, we can do that.
Cool. Yeah. So finishing the operator, getting outputs captured from the operator are huge for us. Is there anything else just about the operator you would like to call out, so I can make sure that we kind of have it in mind as we plan out what we're working on next? Okay. So I have been quietly working on dependencies since I think I kind of gave people an update on this in July, probably July. Yeah. Got a lot more approved out. I've just been slowly putting code and refactoring into Porter. Actually, a ton of this, I don't know, 90% of this is in Porter right now. So that we can kind of have a dual track where you can just, when you build a bundle, you like opt in to the new way of doing dependencies, and then it'll light up, and just as you use Porter with bundles that have these dependencies, it's going to use more advanced workflows and wiring capabilities, sending data from your dependencies back to you, or chaining data from one dependency to another. So I'm just like super keen on that, and that's just what I work on in my free time. So it's definitely moving forward. Trying to get it to the point where like people can start contributing to features of it though. So that's just, I'm trying to get it to the point where there aren't just like a weird, big, ugly PR. All that should be in, and then people can start picking off things and working on individual things like, finding an existing installation, reusing it, actually performing the workflow and running bundles and passing data. There's all sorts of stuff to do. There's a lot of surface area.
I just stepped away for a second. Did you mention anything about like what for the dependencies, what the workflow engine approach you're thinking?
Yeah, I didn't mention anything about that,
Okay.
but after spending a ton more time prototyping and throwing away various things, I'm going with, it's going to be an implementation similar to how we used to do builds of images using legacy Docker. Now we use BuildKit. It's not going to be a proper plugin, but it would be enough that if we wanted to be able to extend it or offer a different implementation, it would be in tree inside of Porter. But otherwise it's going to be an implementation of workflow just built into Porter. I kept trying to integrate with external workflow engines, and one, the complexity shot through the roof. And two, honestly, like one of the things that is incredibly important to me is how we do just-in-time secret injection, and that just was not working at all. And I was really unhappy with how sensitive data was getting not leaked, but present in more places that you had to be aware of and make sure that things were being tidied up correctly, and understanding like, what's the RBAC for secrets in my cluster? If I'm injecting stuff there, who else is able to see these secrets temporarily while they live in the cluster? Things like that just really, I started becoming pretty uncomfortable with. So I was like, let's just do an implementation of a workflow engine. It's not the sexiest. It doesn't have, cool UIs like a lot of these do, but at least I'm pretty confident that it'll integrate really well with bundles and we won't lose the just-in-time secret. But if people are interested in trying to implement something else, it's going to be designed in a way that we could write an alternate implementation, flip a config flag, and let people switch between different things. It just won't be like a full-blown plugin, I'm gonna let you sit on that for a second, because I don't know if like you're okay with it or if that was horrible news.
No, I hear you. Yeah. I mean, I've had success just yanking the DAG library out of Terraform's code base and using that for solving some of the problems, some similar problems. Yeah, I always look there for examples as well.
Yeah. Luckily, we're in a space where there's a lot of existing solutions that we can look at and be like, do we like it? Has this worked well elsewhere? Could it work well for us too? Yeah. But for now, at least, we'll at least get something working that, we can support everything we wanted to do functionally, even if there aren't like as many bells as whistles as established workflow engines have. And, if we find over time we need or are interested in integrating other things in and being like, I want Argo to just handle the orchestration, that'll be an option for people to implement. Are there any other kind of,
I'm just real quick, I'm just as interested in the high level or some big bundle use cases for dependency of like, hey, I want this app that runs on Kubernetes and I can select whatever cloud at like runtime as the dependency, to deploy it on, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And the interface is just a kube config or something.
Yeah, I think we may need to look at that a little bit more, of detecting what's appropriate. At the moment, I'm using bundle interfaces, right? I need to find in the search space that I've been given a bundle or an existing installation that has the interface or has declared itself to provide a service that I'm interested in. But we haven't had a chance to really think through, could I tell that I'm deploying into a particular cloud and then selecting things based off of that? Are there hints or things that we can pick up on, or are there things that the administrator is going to have to do, the cluster operator, to kind of provide those hints or tell Porter what the search space is for, looking for existing bundles? That we still need help with. If you have thoughts on that, I want to hear it.
I'm sure we will. Yeah.
Yeah. But that is definitely the plan. Like I was just talking to people who are looking to adopt Porter, and that is like the second biggest thing beyond just what Porter gives you with, reliable, predictable deployments is they want to be able to make essentially a meta bundle that brings in my database, my, event messaging, all this kind of stuff. And depending on what cloud it's deployed to, or if it's on-prem, it just picks up and determines what are the right bundles or existing installations to use. Yeah. So I think that's all we had. But I wanted to give people a chance to say, operator's cool and all, but there's something else I was really hoping to see us look at or talk about. Just looking at the roadmap we have now, which is going to get updated very soon. The other thing that is really interesting is the CNAB security spec, specifically signing and verifying the signature of bundles. I don't have a strong feel, to be honest. Not many people have ever asked for that. And I'm not clear if that's because they have made something work with Notary all by themselves. But this is still something I would like to work on. But it's still, to me personally, hasn't risen to the level of must have yet, just based off of what people are asking. But so I'm pointing out the call that, like, if this is super important to you, get that back to us so we know, so we could maybe prioritize this higher.
It'll become very important
Yeah.
as soon as the first people come in and go, actually, we want to deliver a product this way.
Yeah. Because the other things that have become very relevant lately is software bill of materials, SBOMs. No one has asked for a BOM for a bundle, or just for Porter in general. And it's something that we could focus time on, but if we can just focus on, say, dependencies in the operator, like, I would love to just limit the context switching. But I'm just pointing that out there, that there are some other things that could be pretty interesting to people. And if it's something you're keen on, let us know. Because the full roadmap is, I want to get to mixins our bundles. Because this will improve security and performance just by leaps and bounds for Porter. And we need dependencies for that first. So as soon as I knock out dependencies, that's where we're going.
Is there kind of an audit of the mixin landscape and to see? Yeah, I don't know. I'm starting to talk more of people who are interested in Terraform and Ansible together as a good power, leveraging the power of each. And yeah, I don't know the current state of where some of the mixins are going to be with 1.0 coming out.
Oh, yeah. I should have answered that. Sorry. So the plugins all have to be updated to work with 1.0 of Porter, because we changed the data and how we communicate with the plugins. The mixins, there hasn't been a big change to how mixins communicate with Porter. We've added optional things. So for example, you can get autocomplete in VS Code now for when you declare a mixin, you can say, like, oh, I want to use the client version 1.2.3 for Terraform or something like that. And previously VS Code would give you nice, lovely red squiggles underneath it and tell you that you're doing something wrong. And we fixed that. And it's something that I'm going to be updating next week, all the mixins, so that they properly report if they support config. But that's really the only change to the mixins. So I'm going to retag them to bring them up to 1.0 RC1. And then we'll see if we hear anything back, and then they'll all get tagged as 1.0. But it's more of a clarity thing than that any significant changes have been shipped in these mixins.
Is there a rebuilding of bundles that is required? I know we ran into a little bit around some of that but it could have been us working in a lot of.
Yeah. So
going out.
The mixin gets built into the bundle, right? The mixin binaries get copied into the invocation image. So if you want to use the latest version of mixins, you would rebuild your bundles after installing the new version of these mixins.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if the non-root stuff. Oh, and maybe I'm thinking of stuff we saw with the operator.
Yeah. There were that's a good point. If someone's coming all the way from a really old version of a mixin from before non-root, there were some problems specifically with Helm and Terraform, because they did initialization of the user's home directory, right? That's both been fixed though for those two mixins. I'm not aware of any others that had those trouble. The idea is essentially whatever the latest version of any mixin is works with Porter v1 right now. Like if you went out and updated all your mixins, they would all work with Porter v1. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Is there anything else people had before we wrapped it up for today? Okay, thanks everyone for
what's
yeah.
the target release date for V1? Is there one in mind?
I just need time to get thumbs up from our big adopters that RC1 is working for them. And if I don't hear show-stopping problems and I've gotten thumbs up from people, it may be as early as like, a week and a half.
Cool.
Yeah. I just need like internal people at Microsoft. I need them to try it. We have some other big people. I'd like to hear from HP. I want to hear from F5 that it's working for you. Yeah. But I don't see a point in sitting super long on it because it's been a long it's been a long road. Yeah. I mean, by the end of September at the latest, short of something awful happening and someone finds a really bad bug.
Cool.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.
Thanks.
Thank you.